I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where I am today and pay my due respects to elders past, present, and of course those emerging. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to have the opportunity to speak to you today about the Palaszczuk government's plan for the future of our resources industry. The resources industry has long been one of the cornerstones of our economy, generating jobs and prosperity throughout the state. Now, history shows Queensland's resource industry has successfully anticipated and embraced global changes over past decades through cycles of gold, base metals, coal, and of course LNG. Economic, environmental and social forces continue to change our world, and I can confidently say that Queensland's resource industry will stay ahead of the pace. How? Because we have the natural resources above and below the ground to exploit the global shifts underway in energy, industry, sustainability and investment. We can provide the renewable energy, we can produce the clean hydrogen fuel, and we can produce the components needed to electrify our industrial, commercial and transport systems. We already have the regulatory frameworks to meet intensifying shareholder and community attention on environmental, social and corporate governance issues. We are upgrading the infrastructure already in place, and we have a skilled resources workforce on tap. And we have a plan to diversify. So let me be clear, Queensland is still in the coal business, particularly when it comes to our high-grade steel-making metallurgical coal. Steel-making coal makes up about 85% of the value of Queensland's coal exports, and we know it will be a strength of ours for a long time. Likewise, gas will continue to be needed for manufacturing and, for a time, for generation of power. However, as renewable energy and battery technology advances over the coming decades, even demand for gas will change. Well, the way forward is clear. We have to diversify our resources industry to ensure that we remain an attractive investment destination and continue to create jobs and business opportunities for Queenslanders. For the gas sector, as the global economy decarbonises, our gas producers will have increasing opportunity to invest in low emission gases such as hydrogen. We built a multi-billion-dollar CSG LNG industry from scratch here in Queensland, and that expertise can be used with other gases. But the major part of our industry's diversification will be critical minerals, and not just mining them and shipping them off to be manufactured, which Queensland has done for decades. Our government's goal is to transform our resources industry from a pit to port operation to a pit to product. Our Premier sees great opportunity in these minerals, which we call new economy minerals, and there's action right across government on this opportunity. Now, as I said, we have the fundamentals that the world-class deposits of critical minerals, particularly in the north of our state, an area we call the Northwest Minerals Province. Now, as you know, this is a major copper and base metals producing area, but a vanadium hub is also emerging around the nearby township of Julia Creek. Late last year, I approved Queensland's first vanadium mine, Multicom Resources St Elmo project. And earlier this year, the Richmond Vanadium Project was made a coordinated project, which means it gets support from the Office of our Coordinator General to navigate government approvals. A key gap for these emerging vanadium producers is demonstrating the technical viability of supply to potential customers. Now, they need to produce demonstration grade bulk vanadium samples of up to 100 tonnes to secure future offtake agreements. Now, that's why our government has committed at least $10 million to build a critical minerals demonstration plant in a major port city, my hometown, with existing transport links to the northwest. The government hopes to have construction start this calendar year and operations underway in 2023. The next step will be manufacturing, and as our Premier has said, with the solar and wind energy generation our state has, we can deliver manufacturing powered by renewables. Later this year, Queensland will have a 5-year battery industry strategy that will focus on creating a battery chemical sector as well as advanced material manufacturing. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's hydrogen. We have a hydrogen strategy underpinned by a fund that's accelerating the development of hydrogen projects. The government also recognises that a pizza product industry requires infrastructure and human resources. Now, I mentioned my hometown port earlier. The Port of Townsville is already North Australia's largest general cargo port and is currently undergoing a $230 million upgrade to widen its channel. Our government is investing more than $340 million in the upgrade of the major rail link from the northwest to the port. We have a development agreement with the Copper String project on their proposal to build an 1,100 kilometre transmission line connecting the northwest to the national electricity market, bringing in reliable, affordable energy. Investing in infrastructure like this in the north is crucial to continue building the capacity of our resources sector and growing the Northwest Minerals Province. I hope I've been able to paint a picture in this short time of the transformation underway in Queensland's resource sector. Well, history shows our Queensland's resource sector has an appetite for change, and right now we're hungry for that opportunity that ongoing change offers us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrew Thake. I'd like to welcome you to our Minds and Money online global event. And I'd like to go and once again, thank our event sponsors, which is the Queensland Government. I'd now like to introduce you to our next speaker, who is Tony Knight, who is the Chief Government Geologist of the Survey of Queensland. A warm welcome to you today, Tony.
Thanks very much, Andrew, and welcome everyone. It's great to have the opportunity to speak today. And I'd like to give you a quick overview of the Queensland minerals sector and of the changes and opportunities that lie ahead. So let's begin by putting Queensland's mineral sector into the broader global, national and local context on the second slide. In doing so, we'll look at how things stand today, but more importantly, discuss the many opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. We must address to not only guarantee our future success as a state, but also to help meet global needs. I think it's fair to say that that task will require a lot of hard work. And I've got a picture on the screen showing one of our work teams hard at work in outback Queensland. And despite the knockabout look of the crew, they in fact include some of our most highly qualified and recognised geophysicists and geoscientists. Undertaking a magnetotelluric survey. MT, geophysics as it's known, is one of the breakthrough technologies helping us to push the frontier of minerals discovery to ever greater depths. On the third slide, in Queensland, we've taken to using the term new economy in recognition of the huge changes, or more properly, the seismic shifts that are underway and which are fundamentally changing the global economy. They are, of course, the energy transition, the shift away from fossil fuels and towards a cleaner and lower emissions energy future. That in turn is driving huge demand for minerals, particularly those needed for wide-scale electrification of our energy, transport and industrial systems. Electrification is creating demand across the full spectrum of energy capture, transmission and storage. The capture and conversion of renewable solar and wind energies requires a range of minerals, creating rapid and large-scale new demand. In transmission, we rely upon that stalwart of civilization for over 10,000 years, copper, for electrical equipment and cables we need to transfer electricity. But it is an energy storage, both mobile and stationary battery technologies, that is driving the most profound increase in demand for minerals and creating a new class of battery minerals. In industry, we are now in what some call the fourth industrial revolution, marked by the rapid development and deployment of new technologies that bring closer together the physical and digital worlds. And some would even say we're entering the fifth industrial revolution in recognition of the profound changes that artificial intelligence is offering. But perhaps the greatest change underway is a global embrace of sustainability by modern society. After many millennia of growth and development, this change is driven by recognition that the global population and the innate desire of people to improve their living conditions must be balanced with the finite resources of the earth. It is the driver of the shift in our primary energy sources. It is the driver of our need to find ways to be more efficient and more effective with what we have and what we use, as embodied by the concept of the circular economy. And most importantly for our economy, it is the driver of change in the investment sector, where the principles of ESG, or environmental, social, and corporate governance, are now investment criteria. And of course, as ever, since civilization began, and people used metals to make tools and weapons, we see geopolitics playing out. But in this era of change and increasing demand for resources, it is creating global competition for resources. On the next slide, we look at geopolitics and growing demand for the family of minerals critical to the new economy, which are driving rapid realignment of trade blocs and partners, which underpins Australia's entry into a strategic partnership with allied countries. At the level of individual jurisdictions, it is also driving a flow of activity with focus on securing, producing, and supplying a wide range of critical minerals. In Australia, the federal government is driving strong focus on converting Australia's rich endowment of critical minerals into new supply chains and new industries. That is particularly important not only to help meet global needs, but also to help Australia transition its economy away from reliance on traditional industries based on fossil fuels, over a possibly drawn out but inevitable journey of change. On the next slide, at state level in Queensland, it's a similar story. The Queensland Government recently released its Queensland Resources Industry Development Plan, with perspective out to 30 years into the future. That timeframe is an acknowledgement of the grand scale of change that is needed and must occur, but accepting that such a scale of change needs to be managed carefully and without leaving people behind. The plan has a strong focus on critical minerals, a recognition of the many opportunities they offer. But equally, there's understanding that it's not only what we supply, but how that underpins another key element of the plan, being recognition of the importance of ESG, of being able to prove our supply credentials in terms of them being based upon sound environmental, social, and corporate governance grounds. And like our federal government counterparts, the state is investing in supporting development of critical mineral supply. A range of initiatives spanning primary geoscience and discovery through to customer, investor, market promotion and engagement are underway. That work includes recognition that the traditional industry-led model of sector development may not move fast enough to meet demand and to outpace competing jurisdictions. That is why, for example, the government is investing in developing common user mineral processing infrastructure. We recognise that there are key points in the development lifecycle of a project and a supply chain that call for demonstrated capability and quality of product. The common user demonstration scale vanadium processing facility we are building in Townsville is tangible commitment to addressing that need. We expect that more such government support will be required to help new industry sectors get up and get going. Let's look now at what's happening on the ground in Queensland. If we use a metric of the amount of exploration tenure holdings for minerals, they are at an all-time high. The vast majority of those holdings, in terms of area, are by junior explorers. They are companies with a market capitalisation of less than 1 billion, although in most cases, the market cap of those companies is far less than $1 billion, and often less than 250 million. And to return to the topic of the need for government support, it is evidenced by the fact that these junior explorers need help. And the greatest help that we can give them is by enabling a path to market for their product. And that is why we're placing so much emphasis on supply chain development. Our existing supply chains were developed for our existing industries: coal, gas, base metals. And while some elements of those can be used for critical minerals, in many cases we need to help establish new infrastructure. While that is expensive and complicated, it also offers opportunity to build modern infrastructure, to reduce the environmental footprint of operations, to optimise infrastructure use, such as via common user approaches, and to build in provenance and traceability systems. On the next slide, we'll see we have a rich opportunity to develop new supply chains, with particular strength in Queensland for vanadium, cobalt, and rare earth elements. Although we also have significant potential across just about the full range of critical minerals, depending which list you look at around the world. Vanadium is of particular interest because, firstly, we have vast resources in our Northwest Minerals Province region. In fact, the formation the vanadium occurs in was, back in geological time, an inland sea, to give a sense of the scale and the size of the resource base out there. Vanadium is typically used as a steel alloying agent, supplied primarily from Russia, China, and South Africa. Been looking through the lens of geopolitics, it's not hard to see the opportunity space for Queensland vanadium. We have huge resources of cobalt and rare earth elements too. Much of the cobalt is a co-product or byproduct of copper nickel production, of course, which means a lot of it has ended up in tailings dams and waste dumps. Rare earths occur in a range of settings across the state, including in the ash of coal-fired power stations. But rare earths are a good example of the opportunity and challenges we face in meeting demand for critical minerals. Let's turn to that now on the next slide. Firstly, on the plus side, Queensland is well positioned to help meet supply of what the world needs for critical minerals. We have mineral resources, the breadth and depth of industry experience, a broad network of infrastructure from our legacy industries, strong research capability, strong regulatory frameworks, an array of aligned strategic partners, and perhaps most importantly, we find broad community support for critical minerals given their link to the future. Without trying to sugarcoat the challenges that lie ahead for us, there's also a lot to do. I think that can be boiled down to a few key work streams. To develop the path to market for industry, to develop the infrastructure, and to work with customer markets to create demand-side pull, to transfer and develop skills from old sectors to benefit the new, to optimise application research and to extend that into development and production, and to strengthen and infill any gaps in our operating frameworks to ensure we can prove our ethical, responsible, and reliable supply credentials. There's a lot to do, but there's a lot of opportunity for many. Exciting times. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation there, Tony. We're now going to move on to our next presentation. If we can please give a warm welcome to Helen Degeling, who's the Minerals Director for Geoscience at the Queensland Department of Resources. The floor is yours, Helen.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I will just get my screen up and away we go. Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be part of Minds and Money Connect today. And before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we gather, whether it's here in Brisbane or around the world, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Now, you've already heard from our Minister, Stewart, and Tony Knight about the challenges that we see ahead in the Queensland resources sector and some of the work that the Queensland Government is doing to prepare for that change. Now I'm going to give you an introduction to some of the innovative and cutting-edge developments in exploration and discovery in Queensland, supported by the Geological Survey, as well as the work that we're doing beyond mining to the reuse of mine waste and secondary prospectivity. As part of that, I'll give an introduction to who I see as some of the more exciting and leading industry players in Queensland's vibrant resources sector. But first, a bit of an introduction to who we are at the Geological Survey. Our job is to ensure the future security and performance of the resources sector in our state, and in particular, to lay the foundation for exploration success. We know that without a prosperous, active, and vibrant mineral exploration industry, there are no future discoveries. And it's the discovery of copper and other base metals, of gold, of silver, of tin and tungsten, and many more that keep the mineral sector alive and feeds a myriad of other downstream industries, some of which are becoming more and more important as the world decarbonises. However, mineral exploration is hard, and it's getting harder. The next generation of big deposits are unlikely to outcrop. They'll be obscured, they'll be hard to find, and probably deep. So it's our job at the GSQ to ensure that the baseline data sets are there and available to industry to make exploration in regions like this, that you can see on the screen, possible. And so to do that, we don't work alone. We work very much in collaboration with academia and other organisations, but most importantly with industry, with companies anywhere from majors to juniors, and there's just a snapshot of them on the screen. And we work to be ready for the societal demands and investment trends that are changing the concept of prospectivity and mine viability. While investors demand new concepts such as raw material certification, traceability, provenance, corporate responsibility, and in general, ESG. But I'm not telling anyone in this audience anything that you don't already know. Instead, I want to tell you about the companies in Queensland who are doing or who are working at that scientific cutting edge, or who are leading the way in the circular economy, and who you as investors should be watching. You won't be surprised to learn that they are all juniors and that only one is a current producer. These are the companies that I think have shown great innovation in their approach to exploration, business development, and potential production. I am going to say now, as a bit of a disclaimer, that in my role in government, I am not a shareholder in any of these. I am a geologist, not an analyst, and these are just the companies that I think are working smart, and they are sitting at the forefront of today's technical challenges and societal trends. But of course, you should all do your own due diligence. The first company I'm going to highlight is Strategic Energy Resources, who hold exploration tenure north of the world-class Ernest Henry and Mount Isa mines. Their Kenobi, I'm just going to try and use the pointer if I'm that clever. The Kenobi and Isa North projects are outlined in red, and as well as that, in the pink dots, you can see the Mount Isa and Ernest Henry copper mines. Now, the darker background colour that you can see on the screen that I'm kind of trying to outline here is the outcropping Mount Isa inlier, so where the rocks come to surface. This paler colour in the background shows regions that are undercover. Australia has a very, very old landscape, and as such, a lot of the rocks are actually obscured by many hundreds of metres of thickness of older dirt or much, much younger sediments. You can see that both of these SER projects fall within that undercover region. Now, these regions are considered by SER to be prospective for iron oxide copper gold mineralisation, similar to that at Ernest Henry. In collaboration with a data science company called Caldera Analytics, Strategic Energy Resources undertook a machine learning project to map IOCG potential. The work was supported by the Geological Survey of Queensland through our Collaborative Exploration Initiative grants. They used regional gravity and magnetic geophysical data, which is freely available through the GSQ's Open Data Portal, and trained the machine learning program on the geology found in key drill holes in the area. The aim of the modelling was to predict the occurrence of hydrothermal magnetite, which is a key component of IOCG deposits. The results are shown here, and in the interest of sticking to time and not being overly technical, I won't go through the details that you can see on these maps. I also know that the images are a little small and hard to read. However, the upshot is that with some very clever geophysical modelling and careful application of machine learning, SER have developed a series of new targets for both their Kenobi and Eisennorth projects, as well as firmed up their interest in some existing targets. They aim to get out there drilling soon, so keep an eye on the SER website for further information. Switching gears now to another company who is doing great work exploring undercover, but using a new technique developed by the Geological Survey of Queensland. This is Demetallica, who were formerly Minotaur Exploration. GSQ wanted to trial the concept of using copper isotopes in groundwater to test for copper mineralisation undercover without having to drill. So we used Demetallica's Jericho project as a test case. At Jericho, we had known mineralisation. It was undercover, but it was not yet mined, and so the exploration environment was still intact. We wanted to find out if we could discover it using this new technique. Demetallica were willing and active participants in the trial, which turned out to be remarkably successful. Now, the image here shows the location of both boreholes or drill holes in the area, water bores, as well as deposits. So Eloise, this one here, is a producing mine held by AIC, whilst Jericho and Altia and Maronan all have JORC resources. Altia and Jericho are held by Demetallica. Maronan is held by Maronan. Now you can see on the image the red dots. The other ones are a bit hard to see, but the red dots have been pulled out. Those are the ones that represent mineralised trend, showing extreme copper isotope values. All of the other water bores out here were sampled, but they didn't show anything interesting in the results. Now, Demetallica recognised immediately the potential for this technique. The analysis of copper isotopes is more expensive than a standard assay. It might cost a few $100s per sample, but that's nothing compared with the cost of drilling a hole through cover based on nothing but geophysics. So Demetallica have now applied this technique to other areas in their tenure package, particularly the Windsor project further east, with support from another of our collaborative exploration grants. Those results aren't public yet, but they will come out at the end of the year, so stay tuned. So you can see two very different but very innovative and forward-thinking explorers to keep an eye on. Another company that I'd like to quickly call out are the Critical Minerals Group, currently in IPO. You've heard both Minister Stewart and our Chief Government Geologist, Tony Knight, mention the common user demonstration scale vanadium processing facility, it's a mouthful, that Queensland Government are building in Townsville. So I'm highlighting here in the circle, the Julia Creek region of Queensland, which plays host to our rich vanadium deposits, with companies such as Multicom, Veco, Richmond Vanadium and QEM and others already active in the region. You can also see the location of Townsville, where the demonstration plant is being built. It's connected to Julia Creek by both road and rail. You can find the CMG prospectus on their website, which I've shown here, and the IPO closes on the 27th of September. Now I'd like to talk about innovation post-mining, starting with the concept of secondary prospectivity, and that is the potential for reprocessing and value extraction from mine waste. This is a huge opportunity for companies around the world. And in Queensland, we already see a number of companies well advanced in progressing this process or this concept. New Century Resources have successfully operated the old Century zinc mine since 2018, based solely on the reprocessing of historical mine waste. Similarly, EQ Resources, in joint venture with Chronomet, began reprocessing of the tungsten tailings at the historic Mount Carbine mine in 2019. These companies are hardly unique globally. However, they are certainly worth calling out for their forward thinking and their perseverance. And this is just 2 sites. Queensland contains nearly 160 tailings facilities, half of which are inactive. This points to huge potential for secondary prospectivity, especially when you consider that most critical minerals are not the primary commodity of interest in traditional operations. A good example is cobalt, which occurs in most of Queensland's significant copper deposits, such as Mount Isa, Ernest Henry and others, but has only occasionally been extracted. In fact, we joke in the Geological survey that the largest cobalt resource in Queensland sits in the Mount Isa tailings dam. This map here on the bottom right shows the distribution and size of abandoned mines in Queensland, the majority of which, of course, have mine waste stockpiles. So at the survey, we've been working with experts at the Sustainable Minerals Institute, the University of Queensland, to develop an inventory of critical metal endowment in Queensland's mine waste. These here on the right are the sites that have been studied thus far, and we are only a couple of years into a multi-year commitment. Many of these sites are being actively mined, though some are also abandoned. For those that are active, of course, we have the willing participation and support of the companies involved. Key company collaborators have been 29Metals at Capricorn Copper, Mount Cuthbert Group at Rocklands, Chinova at the Osborne Mine, and many more across Queensland. We are also very excited to be looking at the potential for cobalt and rare earths at Ernest Henry in the coming months, courtesy of Evolution Mining. And we are also working very closely on the processing side with Cobalt Blue on samples from various sites across Queensland, working to realise the potential that has been locked away for so many years in layers and layers of mine waste. Here is a snapshot of some of the results thus far from the work with the University of Queensland. This graph is only for cobalt in mine waste, though we have equally exciting results for rare earths and a variety of other critical minerals. You can see that there are some really great opportunities for reprocessing of cobalt, particularly in the northwest of Queensland, associated with the prolific copper deposits in that region. We can pull out Osborne, which is this one, Great Australia over here, and Rocklands straight away. So they are the 3 with the stars. The lines across the graph represent the mean of all the sites in dashed red and the average crustal abundance of cobalt in black. In short, there is a lot of potential in Queensland's mine waste. And this is just cobalt. We have, as I said, analysed for every metal and element on the periodic table to get a true feeling for secondary prospectivity in the state. Another huge opportunity is that of rare earths in Queensland's phosphate deposits, of which we have quite a few. They're located, you can see the green dots here along the margin of the Georgina Basin, where it laps against the Mount Isa inlier. The greatest rare earth potential is actually down here in the south, due to the source material for the sediments in that region. Here is a simple graph showing rare earth concentrations in sample from Centrex's Ardmore phosphate project in the Georgina Basin. It's shown in blue, compared with other rare earth deposit examples around Australia and in China. The Ardmore samples, which I'm going to highlight here, show excellent promise as a source of rare earths. And the good news is that the rare earth concentrations are the highest in the most weathered and therefore the least desirable phosphates from a fertiliser perspective. So that points to a really great opportunity for synergies for 2 different commodities within the one operation. There's a lot more to say about this project, and Centrex are certainly aware of the rare earths and have them as part of their future plans. However, they're currently focused on the commencement of phosphate production from Ardmore. Fertiliser, of course, being another commodity currently in critical supply globally. I heard in a Centrex presentation just last week that Australia has until now been an importer of fertiliser, but with Ardmore up and running in September, Queensland will have Australia's first exports of fertiliser going out of the port in Townsville. I'm going to leave you now with this image of why we do what we do and where we're headed as an industry. Our exploration and mining future in Queensland is very bright and will continue to be so with the presence of smart, forward-thinking and sustainably focused companies such as those that I've highlighted here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation there, Helen. Stay tuned for our upcoming next panel, which is on met coal. Thank you very much, Helen, and thank you very much also to Tony Knight.